So one day I got picked up from school from my older sister Abby, and when I saw her I was surprised because usually she doesn't pick me up, it's my parents. And so I asked her, I said, "Where's Mom and Dad?" And she said, "They couldn't get out of work, so I had to come get you." And then she was in a really cheery mood, which is not like my sister at all. And the fact that she had to walk from her high school to my middle school, I was just like, oh, it was just random. So I asked her, I said, "Why are you in such a cheery mood?" And she said, well, her boyfriend, which is still her boyfriend right now, had asked her out to prom, and he had made her a mixtape. And so me, the little girl, the 11-year-old that I am, I'm like, wow, that's really lame. Like, that's not that big of a deal. So she was in La La Land, and so when we were walking home, she was saying, I'm going to put it on when we get home, and you have to do your homework. I was like, okay. So finally we got home, and I was doing my homework, and so she said, let's hang out and let's just listen to this CD that Jason got me. And I was like, okay. So I brought out my crayons and like my coloring book and just paper so that we could just hang out, listen to music on the bed. And at one point I was drawing and I was coloring, and then out of nowhere a song came on, and I had to stop because I was like, what the heck is this? This is so different and it's so good. And I told her, I was like, there's so many instruments and this guy's voice is so different. I've never heard anything like it. And she wrote down on a little piece of paper, and it says, I was just wondering when you'd come along. And 9 years later, I still have it, so I'm going to pass this around. I put tape on it so it wouldn't tear. And so I thought it was really sweet, and it was like the lyrics are so simple. And I realized that that group that was playing was Dave Matthews Band. Oh, there you go. Dave Matthews Band. So you guys are probably thinking, who the heck is that? And I'm going to tell you a little information from Annie Lowray, a writer from Washington Post, says that Dave Matthews Band has won a Grammy, and 6 out of his 9 albums have reached the Billboard charts, ranging from #1 just for like a little bit, not for long consecutive weeks like normal people do, but I mean pop stars do. So now before I go into depth and talk about him, I wanted to ask you guys a question. How many of you guys have that band or song that you guys could always go to, whether it's to make you happy or sad, or you just feel like relaxing? Like, how many of you guys could always go to a band or a song like that? Okay, awesome. So for me, that's always Dave Matthews Band, and I could always listen to him with whatever emotion I'm feeling. So today I want to introduce to you guys the success of Dave Matthews Band. And I'm going to be talking about the early years of how they started, their discography, and their musical endeavors, and my concert experience. Now, before I talk to you about the success of the band, I want to tell you guys about how it all started. So, the driving force behind this whole collaboration is Dave Matthews. He was born and raised in Johannesburg, South Africa. And editors from biography.com have stated that when he was 2 years old, he moved to New York to go with his father to work as a physicist. But then, I guess working as a physicist, he had gotten lung cancer, and immediately had to go back to South Africa to go be with relatives. And when Matthews realized that going back to South Africa, it was very poverty, it was filled with poverty, and it was a very war-raged environment. He realized, like, I'm not going to do this. I can't do this. So when his father had passed, he made a promise to himself, saying that when he was done with high school, that he would come to the States and become something. So that's Dave. It's young Dave, and that's old Dave. Dave's his history was that he finally moved to the States, and his first job was being a bartender in Charlottesville, Louisiana, in a jazz club. And he was exposed to so many variety of genres of music that when he was seeing all this coming in and out of the bar and the club, he realized that he actually wanted to do something along the lines of wanting to become a musician and wanted to start his own band. So Matthews later Matthews later found and befriended two musicians that he had heard of performing in the club, and he had met the drummer, Carter, and then he had met the saxophone player, Leroy, while they were in Charlottesville, and they had the same jazzy rock kind of feel that Dave Matthews has always admired. So they immediately hit it off, and then later they added 16-year-old Stefan, the bassist, and then Boyd, the violinist. So let me see if okay, so yeah, I know it looks funny, but it's the 90s, so they all look, I guess, good. That's Boyd, the violinist. Carter's right here, and then that's Dave Matthews, and then this is Leroy, and then Stefan. So how they got started was they had their first show at a East Children's Alliance benefit at Trax Nightclub from that information I got from their own website, the Dave Matthews Band website, and they had their first show May 11th, 1991, and the word got around, and college students started making bootleg CDs, and people were hearing them from all over the town. And so the buzz was only beginning for them. So with the recognition of their band, and they weren't even recording artists yet, they realized that, like, this is what we should do. We should start recording and see what could happen. So their discography is, they started, sorry, I skipped ahead. That's them now. So that was them in the 90s, this is them, like early 2000s. Dave Matthews now has 8 studio albums and more than 75 live albums. So their first studio album was called Under the Table and Dreaming. Under the Table and Dreaming. This is their very first one that came out, and it peaked to number 11 on Billboard. And now that they were in the studio, they were very humbled that they were getting such good attention. And I skipped this, but this was all of their studio albums, not including these ones. But I chose these two because they have like really good meaning. So this was their second to last recent album, and it was they made it because their saxophone player had died in a freak accident. He was on vacation and he was on an ATV and he had complications and he just passed away. So this album is dedicated to Leroy, and it's dedicated to the Brooks King. That's his nickname. And so they were really, really sad about all of that happening. And so this album especially got a lot of attention because the fans were just really, really sad that he had passed. And then since he had passed, there was new members. So since Leroy had passed, they have 3 new members. This is Tim Reynolds, Rashawn, and Jeff. And so that's that. And then there was a little video dedicated to Leroy, the friend that had passed. This is really my lame face. I actually had the opportunity to even see Dave Matthews Band at the Irvine Meadows, and I was so excited because I thought that they were going to retire by the time I could even afford their tickets. So I was pretty close. That's the stage. I was in orchestra seats, so I was so happy that I got the opportunity to do that. And then that's when it was the nighttime. It was really cool because they did an acoustic set, and then they also did like an electric set, and they played my favorite songs, so that was really awesome. And then I'm going to show you guys a little clip of a day that I saw. Then it's on my Instagram and I edited it, so it's going to look a little fuzzy. And it's not available. Great. Let's see. This is great. Well, I guess I can't show it to you guys. I'm sorry. That's a bummer. But I just really wanted to let you guys know about this band because it's been such a good, it's made me feel great when I feel down. And I know that a lot of people can always draw to music when they're not feeling the greatest. And yeah, thank you.
So, Alondra, what did you think?
I really like it. I've never personally heard like that band, but now since you started talking about it, I kind of want to listen to it, and I really like am eager to like listen to the song that made you want to get into that type of music. I really like how you talked about the past and then about the new members and their band. I also like the part where you actually went like to experience that. That's pretty cool. Because not a lot of people get to do that. I know that I was raised with some bands too that now I want to go, but they already separated. So one thing was that you're reading too much from like the little note card paper, but I think a lot of people do that. So you're okay. I like it.
Thank you.
All right. All right, well, I'm going to disagree with Alondra on a couple of things because I think that there are some issues here, but there are some good things too. First, I like the story that you have at the beginning, but it needs to go a lot faster. It's 2 minutes before we even know what your topic is, and it's 3 minutes before you actually get to your purpose statement. So you are almost, halfway into your allotted time before you get to the point of the speech. And so that just takes a lot of time, and it's not advancing the information that you want us to have. It needs to be a little bit quicker. I think you could probably tell that story in a minute easy. So you need to plan on doing that. There's a preview, so you do have a structure that you're setting up for us. But in the body of the speech, I think you need to signpost that structure a little bit more. You're not doing that very well. I mean, I knew that third section was going to be about your actually seeing the band, but the way that I found out that that's where I was is by looking at the picture that suddenly showed up and said, oh, we're now in that third section of the speech, that sort of thing. And it seems to me like that's something that you should be guiding us through and using your language to be able to do. I like music. I like all kinds of bands. To me, the least interesting thing about what you talked about is the name of every band member. I'm not going to remember those in 10 minutes. In fact, other than Leroy, I'm not sure I remember any of their names right now. There's Dave and Leroy, that kind of thing. And that's not a knock against the band members. I'm sure they're important, but that's not why you listen to the band. It's something that maybe you find interesting as a fan, but why should I care about those things? Why should this audience care about those kinds of things? You haven't given us anything special about that. I do think she mentioned something in her evaluation that is pretty important and stands out. Why are we not hearing any of the music that you think is so important to you, that brings you up or that gets you through? And where's that song that inspired you in the first place? I'm just thinking, she says, oh, I've heard about the band and I want to hear about them. I didn't hear anything in this that made me want to hear about the band, that sort of thing. It was like, oh, every band has a guy who starts it and then a bunch of other guys who join him, and then they go through this kind of thing. Why is this so interesting or different? One of the things that jumps out, they've got 8 studio albums and 75 live albums. 75 live albums? This band has been around for, 20 years? And they got that means they're releasing like 3 live albums a year? What the hell is going on here? There's something weird why aren't you talking about that? That's something that's unusual and different. This is a band that has kind of got a cult following, that has a unique perspective to it. In the old days, you had the Deadheads who would follow around the Grateful Dead, and they'd record and trade their albums and do all that kind of stuff. This is a band that's sort of like a more contemporary version of that, where there are people who are so into the band that they want to hear I want to hear the shows, and the show, last week is different than the show this week, and that's why there's some reason that there's so many live albums compared to the studio albums that are going on, and I don't hear anything about that kind of stuff. It's sort of like I'm getting, just a very basic structure of what's going on with the band, and it's not the interesting stuff about the band. And to me, that's what's missing from the presentation. I like your pictures that you had. I thought that they were nice. I like the pictures. You made fun of your own face being in the picture, but I think that's fine. I mean, that's one of the things that personalizes it. And your personal story is the reason that you want to talk about these things. But you got to get some more information about what's the music like, and why did they connect with their audience, and how you say it affects you. Well, how does it affect you? You say everybody has that music that kind of affects you. I go, well, yeah, I can think of a dozen different kinds of things, but that doesn't mean that everybody responds in the same way. Why is it that this group of people have responded to this particular band? Why is this band so important? And I don't really get that. It sounds like, like I said, you've given me the skeletal structure of every band in the world, and there's something different about the band that you want to talk about, and that's what I think is missing from the speech. I don't mean to sound super critical. I know I come across that way sometimes. But look, these are your speeches, this is your topic, and I hear these topics and I go, there's so much that I want to hear about these topics, and I'm going, why am I not getting that stuff? That's the stuff that needs to be in here, and you got to work on it a little bit more. All right, well, thank you very much for being patient with me.